What's up, Sen Squad? Welcome back to another Brawl Stars video. Today is going to be a Surge guide where I go over all his stats at each of his different stages and how you can best take advantage of his attack and the way in which it works to become a much better player with Surge. We're also going to create a scale diagram of his max power shot and see what this can tell us about how you play Surge. Before we do start, if you want to be an amazing person and join my club in Brawl Stars, here is the clan tag. You can come and play with all the other amazing people in my club, so I'd really appreciate it if you did that, but let's get started. So at stage 1, Surge is obviously the worst. He has a movement speed of about 2.2 tiles per second, and his attack range is 6.67 tiles. And if you have his star power, then his attack is going to split into 2 globs of energy drink or whatever the heck he's drinking, but those are each going to travel 4 tiles. And obviously you still get the split if you hit an opponent, but with the star power you're going to get the split every single attack, so that 4 tile number is something you want to keep in the back of your mind. But even though his range is 6.67 tiles, you can actually extend your range by not attacking directly at people. Now this only works with the star power, but if you attack at a slight angle, then after your attack splits into 2, that extra distance that it travels there will essentially increase your attack range in a straight direction. So by doing this, you can get your attack to travel a total of 7.77 tiles, but then again, this is after your attack split, so it's going to be doing half the damage, meaning it's only going to be doing 734 at power 9. So that is a bit of a risk you take, but then again, it does boost your range at stage 1, and stage 1 is probably the hardest to get shots off, so this is something that you're going to be using quite often, so it is definitely a good strategy to know. Now once you hit 3 of your shots and upgrade to stage 2, the only thing that changes is your movement speed. You increase from 2.2 tiles per second to about 2.7 tiles per second, and it doesn't sound like much right off the bat, but it is insanely significant. He goes from like the second slowest brawler in the game to one of the fastest. So that movement speed buff is obviously huge and just lets you stay alive a lot more easily, because when people run up on you, you won't be stuck there and you'll actually have a means to escape and get away. Now at stage 3, the thing that changes is his attack range, and it's increased by 2 tiles. So it goes from 6.67 tiles all the way up to 8.67 tiles. And at this point, it's still splitting 4 tiles when your attack reaches the end of its journey. But the attack range that you get if you angle your shots like you did in stage 1 is actually less of an increase from the initial attack range than it was before. And not just because how the sort of Pythagorean theorem works, since we're dealing with right triangles here, since your attack splits off at a right angle. So if you calculate the distance of your attack range, which is just the hypotenuse of the right triangle that has the legs equal to your initial shot and the split shot, then you're going to come up with a value of 9.55 tiles. So not even a full tile bigger than your normal attack range, even though it was over a full tile increase at stage 1. So that means while I do recommend angling your shots at stage 1, I wouldn't recommend doing it at stage 3 because it doesn't even give you a full tile extra of distance and it cuts your damage in half. So it's better to just get close enough to people so that you can directly hit them rather than trying to hit them with the split shot. And now the final stage, stage 4, this is where I want to spend most of the time. This is where his attack is going to split into 6 different parts, all going off at different angles and just making him output a ton of damage. So with all these different angles and stuff, it can feel somewhat RNG because it can be kind of hard to predict or control where your shots are going to land. So I made a scale diagram of his attack at stage 4 to look a bit closer at all the distances and angles that we're working with so you can better predict your shots. So I was able to do this just by taking a screenshot of his attack in game and then measuring the distances of his attacks as compared to the tiles on the arena in game. So you can see that I've added a couple measurements, the 8.67 tiles of the main attack, which we already talked about, and the 4 tiles of the split, which we already talked about. But then I was able to calculate using just some basic trigonometry what the angle between the different shots are in it, and it actually comes out to a really nice 30 degrees. So with your normal attack not at stage 4, it's just going to split out at a 90-degree angle, but once you do hit stage 4, you get one shot that's 30 degrees above the typical 90-degree split, one that's 30 degrees below it, and then of course those same 2 30 degrees above, 30 degrees below, but on the other side. So by knowing these angles, you can sort of measure with your eyes on the field at what angle you're positioned relative to your enemies, and then sort of make a quick calculation to see whether or not one of these split shots is going to hit. And another thing we have to discuss is the fact that this increases your range even further, because now instead of just having 2 shots split to the left and to the right, 2 of them are going to split forward to the right and forward to the left. So that's going to give you a bit of extra forward distance, and specifically you can just use the law of cosines and figure out that that max distance is going to be 10.74 tiles, as I have it labeled there on the diagram. So at stage 4, Surge has an insane amount of range, obviously still has the insane amount of movement speed, and with this he's going to get an insane amount of damage. But how do you maximize the damage with Surge? So the optimal play is to miss your shots intentionally and make your shot explode right next to your target, and then hit them with all 3 of the split shots from one side, because that's going to deal a total of 2,352 damage as opposed to the standard 1,568 damage you get just by hitting them directly. So I added a hitbox for reference onto this diagram to show you how far away from the hitbox you can aim while still hitting those 3 shots on that one side. And I measured the distance and it comes out to a max of 1.05 tiles. So if the distance between the person you're trying to hit and your white aiming line is greater than 1.05 tiles, or you can just basically assume it's 1 tile, then you're not going to get the max possible damage. So you want to make sure that your white aiming line is closer to their hitbox than that 1 tile, and you can pretty much guarantee, as long as your vertical distance is right, that you will get the over 2,000 damage. And when you are lining up the vertical distance, make sure that you're not lining up the end of your white aiming line with the center of their hitbox, because the end of your white aiming line is the very tip of that orange circle like you can see in the diagram. But the attack splits from the center of that circle rather than the very end. So you want to subtract about a half tile, and that's actually where the attack is going to split. So instead of making sure that the end of your white aiming line is aligned with the center of their hitbox, you want to make sure that about a half a tile before the end of your white aiming line is going to be aligned with their hitbox. And once again, that's just going to maximize your chances that you hit max damage. And if you're trying to hit 2 people at once, the best way to do this would actually be to attack directly in between them, but coming from an angle. So that way you can hit one of them with 2 of the shots on one side, for example, the top left and the left shot, and hit the other one with the opposite 2 shots. So that would be the right and the bottom right. And that's going to hit 4 split shots, which is the maximum possible. Another way you could do it is just aim really close to one person, try to hit all 3 on them, and then have one of the other 3 split shots shoot out and hit the other person far away. But this gives you less horizontal range overall, so you can only do that if they're close enough together. But that is how you maximize your damage with Surge in Brawl Stars. I hope this video was helpful. If you want to join the 10 squad, don't forget to subscribe, turn on notifications, go to your settings and enable notifications there as well, otherwise you won't get them. But that's all for today, guys, so see you later.